Part 1. The Bookstore. The rain had started just as Mia turned the corner onto Main Street. She pulled her jacket tighter and dashed into the nearest doorway, ducking under the awning of a cozy, old bookstore called Whispers Between Pages. She'd never noticed it before. The windows were steamed, and the air inside smelled like coffee, ink, and nostalgia. The bell above the door jingled as she stepped in. Inside, the world slowed. Shelves lined with worn spines stretched in every direction. A small reading nook with mismatched armchairs and a coffee machine sat quietly in the back. It felt like a place out of time. As she shook off the rain, a soft voice interrupted her thoughts. "You look like someone who just ran from a murder scene." She turned sharply. A boy maybe 18 or 19, with messy brown curls, glasses, and a too-large sweater stood holding a book titled How to Disappear Completely. Mia raised an eyebrow. "Do you always greet strangers like that?" He smiled. "Only the interesting ones." His name was Eli, and he worked there part-time. Mia hadn't meant to stay long, but an hour turned into 2. She browsed the shelves while Eli recommended books she'd never heard of. Their conversations bounced between favorite authors, worst movie endings, and whether tea was superior to coffee. They were different. Mia was fire-impulsive, bright, quick to challenge. Eli was earth-steady, patient, quietly funny, but something clicked. Over the next few weeks, Mia kept finding excuses to stop by. Sometimes it was raining. Sometimes she said she needed a study book even if she didn't. And sometimes, she just showed up with coffee for Eli. They built their own little world inside that bookstore. He'd leave handwritten notes tucked in pages for her to find. She once drew a doodle of his face inside a Hemingway novel. They'd sit on the floor after closing time, reading out loud from poetry collections they didn't understand. One evening, as a thunderstorm rolled in outside, Eli asked, "Do you think people can fall in love over words?" Mia blinked, like, "Just words," he nodded. "Books, letters, sentences, stories." She smiled. "I think that's the only way I ever do." Part 2. Disappearances, but nothing perfect stays untouched. In mid-December, Eli stopped responding to her texts. He wasn't at the bookstore. The owner said he was taking some time. Weeks passed. Finally, Mia found him sitting in the back corner of the library, a stack of unopened envelopes beside him. His hands trembled slightly. "Sorry I disappeared," he said quietly. "My mom's cancer came back. It's not good." Mia sat down beside him without a word, and stayed. They didn't talk much that day, but her presence said enough. She came back the next day, and the one after that. They sat in silence sometimes, other times whispering thoughts that felt too heavy for loud voices. Eli started reading again, but only with Mia. There were days he cried, and Mia held his hand under the table. There were nights when she texted him quotes from his favorite books, just to remind him of beauty when life felt dark. The spring brought sunlight. It brought slow healing. They read to each other again, but now there was a softness, a kind of quiet understanding between them. Some days, Mia brought food to Eli's house. Other days, he wrote her poems he never showed anyone else. Their bond was no longer just built on books. It was built on staying when things got hard. One day, she found a folded page inside her favorite book at the store. It said, "We are not just chapters, we are an entire novel. And I'm not ready for the end." She turned to see him leaning in the doorway, nervous. "Too cheesy?" he asked. She kissed him. And everything shifted. Part 3. New chapters. Years passed in pages. Mia and Eli didn't rush. They finished school. They traveled a little. They read so much. They built their world slowly, like a story worth telling. And one day, they opened a bookstore of their own. It was small, nestled between a flower shop and a bakery. The sign above the door read, "Chapters Between Us." Inside, it looked familiar: wooden shelves, mismatched chairs, a reading nook by the window, and a tiny bell that jingled just like the one on the rainy day they first met. On one of the back walls hung a framed quote, "Some stories don't need big beginnings. Just the right page." They had customers, sure. But their favorite visitors were the ones who came in alone, eyes wide, curious and lost. Sometimes, Mia would slip notes into their books, like Eli once did. Sometimes, Eli would recommend a story that could change someone's week. And sometimes, a new stranger would walk in during a rainstorm and find something they weren't looking for. In some of the books, there were still messages, for strangers who might become stories. And that's how Mia and Eli stayed alive in pages, not as characters, but as proof that even the quietest moments can change your whole story.